Hello, everyone. Welcome to Online Trading Campus. This is Jan Skoropinski with you today, and I'm going to take you through a beginner's guide and beginner's practical application tutorial on TradeStation. Before we get started, I just wanted to cover a few care points. Number one, we at Online Trading Campus have no affiliation with external brokers or trading software. Therefore, we have nothing to gain, and it's completely up to you whether you want to join TradeStation, TradingView, or any other broker or trading platform. Now, TradeStation comes with a unique set of advantages. Mainly, the advantages are we can access the central marketplace, the futures, real underlying futures data that we will pull through the CME, the CBOT, the NYMEX, and the intercontinental exchanges mainly. So we get access to the real institutional data that also institutions use to take their decisions on, and that also our indicators run on. When it comes to data and when it comes to indicators, you may have heard of the saying, shit data in, shit data out. So it's important that the data flow that comes into our indicators is reliable and dependable. And as we use the real futures data, the central exchanges that all of the institutions are accessing when they're trading, it makes sense to use this real data as an underlying fundament. So as you'll find out later on down the road, is that our indicators are therefore going to be coded on this powerful underlying coding infrastructure, which is called easy language, which is unique to TradeStation. It comes with unique sets of advantages, such as integrated data optimization and data performance reports that one of our trading software, the Campus Strategy Optimization trading software, runs on. And this is unique to TradeStation. So if at any point in time you want to access and subscribe to our indicators later down the road, you will have to have a TradeStation account. Now, since most of you will be based out of the US, it also makes sense to have a TradeStation account because TradeStation is US based. Their customer support hours are US based, and it's relatively easy as a US citizen to get a TradeStation account. So we have no affiliation with TradeStation. We have nothing to gain from you choosing TradeStation or any other trading or trading software, broker, or charting platform. And we have no affiliation because we want to stay neutral in our educational approach, and we want to give you our honest opinion about what we perceive to be the most innovative platform out there at the moment, right? That's very important for us. We don't want to lie to you and say, oh, you have to go with this broker just so we can make an extra buck. But in reality, another broker may be more powerful to you. Or it may be the case that eventually down the road, there will be another broker that comes up that may be able to compete with TradeStation or maybe even better eventually than TradeStation. And if we have no affiliation, we can then flexibly also change our decisions based on the data. So when the data changes, our decisions also change. But at the moment, as it stands, TradeStation is hands down one of the most powerful charting platforms and coding infrastructure platforms that we can use. With all of that out of the way, if you want to create a TradeStation account, within the notes section, you'll find a TradeStation account creation step-by-step guide. So I'm not going to show you how to sign up and how to get an account. You can just follow the guide. It's also quite self-explanatory as all of that it's online based. So you put all your information here. What is, however, relevant is that you create a futures individual or joint account, probably an individual account. So you want to create a futures account, because as you create that futures account, you will get access to the futures data that you will have to subscribe to. Okay, so under customer profile, once you have access to a client center, you have software and data subscriptions. And under the software and data subscriptions, what you want is you want to have access to, it's called the Globex Value Bundle. And under this, you get the CME real-time data, the CBOT real-time data, the COMEX real-time data, the NYMEX, the ICE, which is then delayed, but it's free, and the MGE, which we don't really use, which is also free. And so you get all of this data for free. If you don't have a futures account, then you'll have to pay and subscribe to that data. If you have a futures account, it's going to be for free, which means you can see right here, my subscription per month is 0. So it makes this a zero cost solution for you in terms of charting. Even if you don't choose to place orders through this broker, if you just choose to do the analysis through this broker, you need very limited capital on the account to access the demo account. At the moment, it's roughly $200, I believe, that you have to have on the account for you to access the demo data. We can also access Forex, and we also have access to what's called a radar screen, which also one of our indicators is going to be based on, right? And also the index data is going to be, the CBOE data is going to be for free as well. Once you have access to the client portal and once you funded your account with at least $200, then you can download the platform, and this right here is going to be the one that you want to download. They also have a great app, and they also have a web trading solution. However, the web trading solution is not as powerful. For web trading, I recommend TradingView. However, for trading software, a desktop solution, I recommend downloading just the first one right here. As you download and install, you will get most likely an empty desktop right here. So now we're going to go into the TradeStation tutorial. The end result of what you want to see eventually is you'll have a radar screen that lists all the symbols that you may be interested in. And we have several windows, and these several windows are used for several parts and steps of our analysis. So you'll have at least 3. I'll show you how to set all of that up. And on top of that, eventually, as you become more advanced, you want to subscribe to the indicators. And as you subscribe to the indicators, you will then also have access to unique studies and trading software from us that we have innovated, developed, and launched, and that you then also can integrate into your charts right there. It is important for me to mention that the indicators are not necessary for you in the beginning. You will have access to the indicators through joining our live trading sessions, and you will be able to take trading signals based on our indicators as you follow the analysis that we provide through our live trading sessions. Only later on down the road, as you want to become more independent, you can choose to subscribe to our indicators. And if you choose to subscribe to our indicators, you will gain ownership. Okay, there's a difference between having access and seeing the signals that our indicators give, which you do through our daily market analysis sessions. This is your access that you can enjoy, and the analysis that we do based on that you want to copy. However, having ownership of the indicators and the trading software is a completely different story. And if you want ownership, these indicators have to be coded to your personal TradeStation account, your ID, and your network ID, so that they are unique to your TradeStation account. So there's a lot of work that is required in the back end in terms of coding and sharing and admin work to share ownership of the indicators so that you can use them on your own ends. However, as I mentioned, ownership is not necessary. It's not that important. It's only for the more advanced trader that wants to become independent and that trusts in their independent analysis through trading experience. And of course, eventually, if you can see that you're doing a good job and you're earning money, then you can reinvest some of your earned money in new trading equipment. And that could include software like trading indicators and our proprietary trading software, the Campus Strategy Optimization. For the purpose of today, since this is a beginner's TradeStation tutorial, I do want to focus on the basics of TradeStation and how to take advantage and navigate on TradeStation. So if you open TradeStation for the very first time, it may ask you to log in. Make sure you always log in to your SIM account. That way, there's no wrong buttons that you may be pressing that may lead to you losing money as you familiarize yourself with TradeStation. So as you log in, there will be an option for you to say, do you want to log into a live account or a SIM account? Make sure you always use the SIM. Do not just press enter. If you just press enter as you log in, it will automatically log into your live account. You can always check whether you're in the SIM or on your live account as you hover towards the bottom. And here you can see that I'm logged in with the SIM account, which I only use for charting purposes. Let's cover some nomenclature. This is a desktop. And in fact, under files and desktops, you can open multiple desktops, okay? For the moment, you don't want to open multiple desktops. You just want to have one desktop open at the moment. And you could, for example, say new desktop. And now I would have another desktop right here. And now you could see, now I would have two desktops next to each other. However, for the time being, I just want one trading desktop. So I'm going to close this down. Never press this button as you close something down, because you never want to remember this option, because sometimes you may press that button mistakenly. And then if you're going to close this desktop without saving, then, and you remember this, then it's always going to do that as you press the X right there. So never remember it. Always just close it down manually. And now we work on your one desktop. So we have a desktop. We can create multiple desktops. And we have worksheets down here. And also down here, we can create multiple worksheets, just like in Excel. You could create a worksheet for Forex. You could create a worksheet for futures. You could create a watch list. You could create a worksheet for stocks, and so on and so forth. Creating new worksheets is relatively simple. You either press the plus button here, or you go navigate towards the top, File, Workspace, New Workspace. Eventually, you can also open workspaces as you have some old ones saved. If you go to Open Workspace, it will take you straight to the Documents TradeStation 10 folder where all the workspaces are saved. Now, there is a way of using multiple TradeStation accounts with using one worksheet or one desktop. And how you overcome this, since this is saved on your computer, on your hard drive, you could also, for example, save one of those worksheets on a OneDrive. And then you can always link the OneDrive to your Documents folder. This way, you would have access to your worksheets from 2 or 3 machines. Let's say you have a laptop that you work on remotely on the go, and you don't always update your charts on, you don't always want to update your charts on both your laptop and your desktop solution, then you want to have your OneDrive linked to this so that when you open up TradeStation on your laptop, you can just load in your OneDrive, that's your OneDrive worksheets that's going to be synced with that, with those kind of worksheets right there. So having a OneDrive folder also is quite nice because it kind of saves your data in case something happens to your desktop solution and you don't want to lose all of your work if that happens as a kind of worst case. Now, mostly what we will use under apps are going to be a radar screen, as well as chart analysis. So chart analysis will be Windows and radar screen is going to be your list of markets with whatever data you want to have loaded within that as well. So you can see on my worksheet, I have the radar screen right here, and I have my windows to the right. If you want more windows, you can always just go to apps and then just load in more chart analysis. And then it would again create another window. And then you can flexibly drag and drop and widen it and move it and maximize it and minimize it. What's nice with your desktop layout and your worksheet layout is going to be that the windows and the radar screen will remember its size as well as coordinates. So once you have a layout in place with multiple windows, and this is quite a small window, you want to do an analysis on this, you just maximize it, you do the analysis, and then you minimize it again, and it will go to the spot and the coordinates and back to the size where you had it previously. So there's no need for you to always rearrange your worksheet and your windows. Once you have it set, keep it, and then operate with maximizing and minimizing the windows. Now your windows are customizable. Everything in TradeStation is customizable. To get to the layout that I have, that you can see right now, you can either double click on the window with your left mouse button. Here you can see you go to customize window. What you can also do is you can right mouse click, you can go to settings, and you can go to window. And now you also get to customize window. So there's always multiple ways on how to get where you want to get. There's also a settings button up here. I can click on it, go to window, and I again can customize the window. So you can customize anything from having a watermark, which you may have as default, which I don't. You may have the bar spacing to the right, which will be quite important as you use indicators of hours. You will have a status line, which is this line up here that you can add things or remove things. You can play around with that completely. You can change the font. You can make it bigger of both the status line and the axis labels. You could change the color of the grid or any other background or displayed values. You can play around with the colors. On my end, I have everything as default. The only thing that I changed is I'm not showing a grid, and I'm not showing session breaks, and I'm not showing the watermarks to keep it clean and simple, because as we draw in a lot of lines, we don't want to get overwhelmed by the amount of lines and drawing tools that are going to be visible. It needs to be clean and easy to read. So if we remove all the noise, if we just see our beautiful candles, that's usually the best setup. But again, this is completely optional preference. It's customizable. As you click through those options, you can remove and add whatever you would like to add. When you're done with any of those subcategories, make sure you press set as default. If you press set as default, all the windows that you are now going to load in are going to be as per your default setting. All right. So you really want to do that to make sure that you don't always have to do it from scratch. If you don't want to do that, you could also do one thing. We now changed one, right? And now you could say, well, this is quite nice. You like that one. Let's just copy that window and paste it. And now it's going to paste that window right there. That works across workspaces. So I could go to this workspace and I could paste it again. And now I would have this workspace pasted into another worksheet. So now you can again drag and drop and maximize or minimize, make it smaller, bigger, whatever you want to do to customize your window. There's an easy arrange all function right there. You can arrange horizontally under window, arrange vertically. You could cascade them, or you could just arrange them all to see what TradeStation is going to do. That's what TradeStation just did. I don't like it. I want this to be on the first. So I click on it. I go again, arrange all. Now it's moving to the first, all the way to the left as the first window. This is a bit too big for my liking, so I'm gonna narrow it down. I'm gonna move this to the left. And let's try to make them evenly sized right there. Beautiful. And right now, what can I do within the windows? I can do a lot of things within the windows. I can change the time frame. Under time frame, I could go to a monthly time frame. I could move this to a weekly time frame. I could also go to right mouse click, time frame, and have these options here and even further customize. Make sure that you are on the time zone exchange. Under the customize symbol, under time frame, you get a lot of additional things that you may want to adjust. So you want to load a lot of data. So I have a default 30 years on my weekly. That's probably overkill. 15 years may be enough, but my computer has enough processors and is good enough to load this very, very quickly. If you see that eventually your computer and your TradeStation is going to be slower and slower, it may be that it has to load a lot of data in the backend. And so if you notice that, you can always remove some of those years, just make it that it loads 10 years of prior history. And that way, here I only have now 10 years loaded, right? It only goes back to roughly 2013, while here on this chart, I'm on the monthly. So I could now again, time frame, customize. Here it's at 10. I could put this to 30. And now I would see, okay, now I have 30 years on crude oil. on the monthly, and I have 10 years on the weekly. And that should do the job. Now, there are some shortcuts to changing the time frame. So the shortcuts are as follows. The daily, the weekly, and the monthly can be navigated as you put in daily, and you just click on the chart and you write daily, and it will create a daily chart. You can also put weekly, it will create a weekly chart. You can put monthly, it will create a monthly chart. You could also type in .d for daily, .w for weekly, and .m for monthly. In terms of the loading of history, you could also tell it how many years you want to be loaded. So I want to load 15 years. Now it's loading 15 years of data. So we go to roughly 2008. I could say, just give me 1 year of data. Type in 1 year. Now I'm just seeing 1 year of data. I could type in 30 years. Give me all the data that you have. And now it should be loading 30 years. Navigating on TradeStation and moving the chart can be quite tricky at times. How to drag it is you have to hover over one of those candles. You have to pull it, click it, hold it, and then you can drag it to the left. And you can change the space between the candles by pressing up on the keyboard or pressing down on the keyboard. And you can see that the space between the candles shifts, it's getting bigger, and therefore the chart is seemingly zooming in. And if I press the down button, the chart is seemingly zooming out. But what is actually happening is I'm just reducing the size in between the candles. What you want to do is you want to have as little space in between the candles as possible, but you still want to see the formations in terms of supply and demand, because on a zoomed out view, on a bird's eye view, it may be a lot easier to spot the demand imbalances and the supply imbalances as compared to zooming in. You may not be spotting anything because it's just candle overload. There is a shortcut to you going back to your starting point, which is now. And so, for example, if you, for example, use the cursor here, you move all the way to the left to here, and then you're like also changing the axis here, and you're playing around here, and you're like, damn, how do I get to my front view, my default view? You just go right mouse click, reset scaling range, and now you're at the front. Then just press down a couple of times until you see what you want to see. So just play around with navigating here. It takes some getting used to, but once you're used to how to navigate on here and on the price axis and the space between the candles and dragging and resetting, it's actually quite easy and straightforward. Let's assume you want to create another window, and this time you want to add a lower time frame. So how to get to the lower time frames is also quite simple. We're going to copy this window, we're going to paste it anywhere, and then I'm going to drag it beautifully so it aligns with the other two charts. Now here I can go to time frame, and I can just go to a minute time frame for the lower time frame, but I could also say 240 space min for a 240-minute chart. Once I'm navigated towards the minute charts, I can just change the minute charts by typing in 60 for 60 minutes, by typing in 15 for 15 minutes, or 3 for 3 minutes, or 1 for 1 minute, or 200 for 200 minutes. And if I wanted to go back to the daily, I could just press .d, and now I'm back to the daily. So now I have a daily, a weekly, as well as a monthly chart right in front of me. I'm at the moment looking at crude oil at CL equals 103xN. So you need a list of symbols that you can put into your radar screen so that whenever you click on one of those preset, predefined symbols, the charts, your windows will change accordingly. Now, I will show you how to do that. On your radar screen, you can just type in whatever you want to type in. So you can type in AAPL for Apple, but notice that nothing is changing, right? You could type in Amazon, or what is it? AMZN, right? Amazon, and you can notice nothing is changing right here. You could type in @GC for gold. Notice nothing is changing here. So we need to link our windows with our radar screen and our windows with one another. Now, you have these S's, which is a local as well as a global symbol link. And you have the I's, which is a local and global interval link. So you can either link the symbol, or you can link the interval, or you can link both. You can link them locally, which means you link them within only one workspace, or you link them globally, which means you link them across all workspaces. Okay, so let's make an example. I want to have a green local symbol link, and whenever I click on any of those symbols, I want my windows to change. So I'm gonna make this green, I'm gonna make this green, I'm gonna make this green. Now they're all the same color. They're all linked locally with a green local symbol link. So if I now press on @GC, you will see that all of them change, but only the symbols change, not the time frame. If I created a time frame link here as well on, let's say, a blue time frame link and a blue time frame link, now you can see these two time frames are also linked. So if I'm going to change this one to a weekly, changes both of them, to a monthly, changes both of them, to a weekly, and back to a daily. However, I don't want to do that, so I just press on it again, it removes the link, press on it again, it removes the link, we put this back to a weekly. So now we just have our green links on locally on GC, and notice that this chart is still on CL because I haven't created a global link here, right? So if I wanted, I could also say, well, let's create a green global link right there. And now if I'm going to change it, you can see that these will not change because they're not globally linked. They're only locally linked. However, if I'm going to put this also to a global link right there, now if I go to GC, you can see also GC is there. So what we want to do, however, this would be important if you, for example, create two desktops, right? One desktop here, one to the left. One desktop could just be your radar screen and maybe a higher time frame. And then another desktop could be a lower time frames, and you want them all to be globally linked. You could do that. For this exercise, I'm going to keep it simple, local symbol link, and I'm going to link all of those with our local symbol link. Let's see if it works. Yes, it does. And so I can type in whatever I want. I can also Control C, Control V, and copy and paste it down, for example, as well. I could just press the delete button to delete all of those. And you can here create your own symbol link. Within the notes function, you will find a futures contract cheat sheet. I'm not going to go into how our unadjusted symbols work on futures and why we use the charts that we use. Just note down, these are the real underlying institutional price charts based on the central exchanges that institutions also use to make their decisions. So you will have a full list of the equity indices, and you always want to put in the unadjusted symbols at ES equals 107XN. You want to put in you have a difference between also micro and normal. You don't need the micros, okay? You just need the normal groups. Then you have interest rates. Again, the unadjusted symbols are the ones that you want to use. Then on energies and metals, you have crude oil, natural gas, gold, silver, copper. These are the symbols that you want to use. So if I'm going to copy that for gold, I'm going to paste it right there. You can see that now I have gold right there. So you'll find this within your notes, and you can create a full list of only the products that you're interested in or all of them, right? If you want to make an exercise out of it, you again have the minis and the micros. You don't need those. Then you even have currencies on futures. You can type those in right there. Then you have the currency mini micros. You don't need those. You have agricultural group. You have corn, wheat, soy. And so if, for example, you're like, hey, I want to check out soybeans, again, copy that out, paste it in. And in this case, it pasted two rows here. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to overwrite that. Maybe not the best example. I would have to put it next to here. Okay, so the symbol here is at S equals 110XN plus FHKNX. Here we go. Now I would have soybeans and so on and so forth. How do you want to create that symbol list? And you can see these are the markets that I usually look at. So I have an equity index group. I have a precious metals group. I have an energies group. I have a Forex group. I have an interest rate group. I have other metals, and I have stocks as well, all within one window. And I'm only showing the last and the net change. And this is our true seasonality indicator that you don't have access to. So these are the things that I'm showing at the moment. So what you want to do as well is you can right mouse click data, and you can add a blank label row or just a blank row. When you create a label row, you create a subcategory. So here you could say metals, and you could have at GC, for example, right? That we just did. Then you could go again, data, add label row, and then you could create a subcategory for stocks. Now there's a function for you to find the symbols. For example, when you say, and this does not really refer to futures. For futures, you use our symbols, but for stocks or for Forex, anything non-related to futures, you can find a symbol in adding symbol. So You click on this, go to data, add symbol, and now you can use the lookup function to say, well, what am I looking at? I'm looking at a stock. What's the description? Well, I want to see Apple, but what's the symbol for Apple? Then, of course, you use the Nasdaq exchange, which is AAPL. Okay. And press OK. And now you get Apple. Note that on stocks, I have a D in brackets, which means it's delayed data. It's delayed by 30 minutes. And it's delayed because I have not subscribed to the real-time data, as I've shown you before earlier under the software subscriptions, data subscriptions. I only subscribe to the futures real-time data, and stocks delayed because that's for free. And we don't really need real-time data on stocks. But that's optional. You can, of course, pay a couple of dollars per month to get the real-time data and not have a 30-minute delay on there. I used to have it, and then I found it doesn't really make a big difference on my levels because anyways, I trade higher timeframes on stocks. So I'm fine with the delayed data on stocks for charting purposes. You could also click on this entire thing here, right mouse click, and you could go to studies, and you want to edit all studies. Now this window opens, and here you can remove the interval, you can remove the bid, the ask, the high, the low, the volume. You don't need all of that stuff. What you do want, just to make your life maybe a little bit easier, is a description. So go to D, description, move that up to the first, and now you have a description. So now you also see behind the future symbols what kind of product that is. So now you have a radar screen. You can copy and paste my symbols into your radar screen. What I have here, these are also the ones that I go through in my live trading sessions. That's what you want to use as well as a base. But outside of that, feel free to add whatever market you're interested in by simply using the unadjusted symbols for cacao, for sugar, for coffee, and for palladium and platinum and heating oil and all of the other markets that are available to trade under the sun and under the moon, and that we may not necessarily look at every day, but that you may be specifically interested in looking at. If you're not looking at futures, then use TradeStation's data add symbol lookup function to find whatever bonds, funds, futures, options, stocks you may be looking at, and putting in a description. For example, I struggled with the Amazon symbol. You type in Amazon, and here it is. Okay, the Nasdaq exchange. Okay, I want to add that. Perfect. Press OK. You have Amazon here, and you get the Amazon chart. Now we can start charting because now our infrastructure is set, right? Now we just have to go through the charting tools and also creating shortcuts for those to make your life a little bit easier. But before we do that, you probably by now want to save your workspace. To do that, just right mouse click on your workspace, save as, make sure you're in the designated TradeStation folder, and call it whatever you want to call it. Campus TradeStation tutorial. You could name it futures worksheet. You could name it watch list, whatever you want. Save. You can see it's saved now. Now, if for whatever reason I close this down, oh, it's gone. What am I going to do? Well, I can now just go to File. I can go to Workspaces, and I can open my workspace. Or I could go to recent workspaces. Hey, there it is. There are my recent ones. Let's open that back up. See if it's still there. Yes, it is. So TradeStation is not perfect. Okay, sometimes things will get lost. Sometimes things will get messed up. Sometimes You'll find drawing tools that are not supposed to be there, that you have no recollection of. Okay, how does that get there? Don't worry about it. TradeStation sometimes has its own personality, its own character, but if you're nice to it, it'll treat you well as well. Just note down that oftentimes it's not your fault. Oftentimes it's just TradeStation software glitch that makes our life a little harder. But overall, it's definitely maintainable. All right, so let's use the drawing tools, some of them that we'll use. And under drawing here, you can see that there are already quite a lot of shortcuts that I have. So I have a shortcut for horizontal line. I have a shortcut for vertical line, shortcut for a trend line. The Fibonacci retracements will be the supply and demand levels. I have arrow down, arrow up, eclipse, rectangle. Take a screenshot of this page right here, and then I'll show you how to create a shortcut for one tool, and then you can use also my shortcuts that I created for the other tools. But again, this is optional. For trend line, you could use whatever shortcut is most easily accessible within your keyboard that makes the most sense to you. Maybe you're using this on a different language and trend line is not a T. Maybe it's a completely different word for it, and then you would use a different shortcut for it as well. You have to navigate on TradeStation yourselves, right? And therefore use the shortcuts that make the most sense to you. So I'm going to start with Fibonacci lines, because those Fibonacci retracement lines are going to be the basis of our supply and demand levels. Okay, so what you want to do is, if you put in the Fibonacci retracement line for the first time, it may not look like mine. So what you want to do is you want to either, again, double click on it by getting the customized Fibonacci price retracement lines, or right click on it, edit, to again get to the customized Fibonacci price retracement lines. Now, what you want to have under settings, you just want to show the 0 and the 100, note down the color and the size of it all, and everything else should be unchecked. Extend it to the right, don't extend it to the left, set as default before you press OK. And you can always lock it if you want to have it set in place for you to not run the risk of you moving this somehow. Not needed at the moment, but these are the settings for your Fibonacci price retracement lines. The labels should be right justified, and you just want to show the price. You don't want to show the value, and maybe you just increase the size a little bit here. Set as default, press OK. On data, you could put in the data where you want them to be. In this case, you don't need anything. Press OK. That's where you get them. That's how you get it to look like mine. Now, if you want to create a shortcut on this, right mouse click, settings, hotkeys, go to drawing, and now your Fibonacci retracement lines, click on it. You can see current, I have Control F. So I can press here and then go Control F or Control B or up or down or Y, right? You could put whatever you want. I usually like a control and then something, just to not interfere with any other shortcuts that TradeStation may have. And then press assign it, and then close it down. And then you should have it. And now if I press Control F, you can see already by hovering over the chart, it comes with these horizontal lines, which means it's a Fibonacci price retracement line. I also have a trend line, which if I press Control T, I can draw a trend line, but let's just stay with this for a moment. Okay, so this we use for our levels. Now, I may have a demand level and I may have a supply level. And if I want to change those lines individually, you can see there's a little bit of a dot there. If you press on this dot, you can change the lines individually. If you don't press on the dot, if you press anywhere else, you will change the, you will move the whole thing. So if you want to change one individually, make sure you press on the dot, and then you can change them individually. Don't just drag the whole thing. You'll just mess up your entire level. There's also a tool which is called snap mode. And if you turn the snap mode on, it will snap those dots to either the high, the low, the close, the open of the candle. Okay, so this way you can scientifically snap them towards the part of the candle that you want without having to zoom in and say, oh, where do I want to put it, right? Now you can notice I unsnapped the lines. How did I do that? I use Control S. So snap mode, you can see Control S. If I press Control S, then now I'm snapping. Now everything is always snapped. And if I press Control S again, which I just did, now it's unsnapped. Now I can drag it anywhere. Control S again, now I'm snapping. Okay, so reset, press down. Okay, here we go. So you can snap your lines towards the candles and candle parts that you want to scientifically and mechanically snap them towards. This is the only time you will use snap. Only for the levels you will use snap. So you want to quickly be able to turn on and off snap as you navigate on TradeStation. I just have Control S as a tool. I also oftentimes will use Control B for the rectangle, Control B for box. So that's the rectangle that we use to highlight the supply and demand levels. We highlight supply and demand levels because I may have multiple supply and demand levels. So now I have 4 lines here. How do I know that this is my supply and this is my supply and not the thing in between? Well, I have those yellow boxes. So Control B, press once, press another time, drag and drop by pressing at the little dots, drag and drop the whole thing by just clicking and dragging one of those lines. Double click to customize. This is my fill color. I have it 80% transparent. This is my line color. And to make it yellow, but again, this is all personal preference and customizable. So I just want to show you what I have for you to create the same if you wish to do so. But I also want to show you how to customize your own drawing tools. So now I have my supply and demand levels. We also use the Fibonacci to create our location. So from top to bottom, I double click, and here I can use the 33 and the 66. This makes a lot of sense if you watch the blueprint course. That's just something to also note, that there's also the Fibonacci retracement lines we also use for the location analysis. Now, if you want to draw a trend, I use trend lines. So drawing trend line, Control T. And I press once, I press another time. And now if I can just do Control T, it allows me to draw a nice trend. And look at that, we're still uptrending on Amazon. So now I can also put in my arrow up and arrow down and Control down and Control up button. Control up, 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 and Control down, down, and down. I could also give them names. Drawing, I have Control W. So this is drawing text, I believe. Control W. This is a high. This is a low. And this is a high or low, and so on and so forth. If you wanted to give them names, or if you want to note down anything, for example, daily uptrend, you want to note this down in the chart. You want to say, look for buying, right? You want to make yourself notes as you analyze the chart, so that if we now move to Apple, right? And now we go back to Amazon, all of this is still saved. And also the text is still there. So you know, hey, what did I do exactly here again? Ah, yes, daily uptrend. I want to look for buying. Exactly. Okay. Because if you're going to analyze 10 markets, you want to note down what you do, because otherwise you may forget, right? This is going to save you a lot of headache. Trend lines, of course, can also be used to draw trend lines, right? I could also say, well, I want to draw a trend line here somewhere, right? Maybe with a couple of tests here. And then you could also say, under drawing, I have an ellipse here, Control E. I have one test, two tests, three tests. Now we're at the breakout test area. Very interesting area to take a look at. Reset. Here we go. Now, as you can see, there's not a whole lot more that I use. Sometimes I use horizontal lines. Now, a horizontal line, the difference between a horizontal line and the fib is that the horizontal line will extend to the left. So I can see, for example, okay, what's happening here to the left, or I can use the horizontal for using double click and enabling an alert right there. And I can let TradeStation alert, give me a sign here, and make a noise if price is crossing this area. The key to alerts, however, is that your alert needs to be visible to TradeStation. So your alert cannot be in the back. So right here. If you have Apple open, you leave your chair, you go to another room, and you depend on the alert to be triggered for you to return to your TradeStation. There will never be an alert triggered on Amazon, because the chart is within the back end of the radar screen. Only if it's within the front end of the radar screen and it's loaded, the alert will be visible and you will be notified. How to overcome this if you want to create a lot of alerts on TradeStation? You create another workspace. You save this workspace as alerts for watch list. And now you copy that across to your alerts watch list. And now you could have, make sure you unlink it, right? So you can have multiple different windows next to each other and arrange them all. So for example, now on Apple, you also want to create alert right here somewhere. Double click, enable alert, configure, even maybe get an email, configure the messaging function on email. And here you just need to Google what your IP address and your SMTP server is for your email address, whether you use Gmail, Yahoo, or whatever else there is. There's going to be different SSLs, TLLs, and so on that you may want to customize here. And then you would also get technically emails. And okay, copy, paste, copy, paste. unlink. The alert's been triggered for some reason. Not sure why. Arrange all. And now you can see my alerts are right there. So, and now whatever you do here, doesn't matter whether you go to gold and the alerts are hidden in the back because it's going to be in the front end on that worksheet. You'll get the emails, you'll get notified. The next care point on alerts is TradeStation needs to be running. Okay, so TradeStation needs to be running and the charts need to be in the front end visible for the alerts to be triggered. What else do we have on our worksheet here that you may not have yet? We have indicators. Again, you don't need the indicators just yet. And sometimes you can see we have those red dotted lines and we have those vertical lines as well. And so how to do those? If you, for example, are drawing a level and you want to set that level, you may want to set that level with a stop loss. And the stop loss usually goes minus 33% below the distal of the entire formation. You can just put a minus 33 here, press OK, and it will go automatically there. Now, for this to work is you always have to put the proximal in first and the distal second. Then minus 33 is always going to be above, right? Above or below, depending on whether that's supply and demand. So if I put a minus 33 here, it'll be above because I put the proximal first and then the distal. Proximal first, then the distal. So always the line closer to current price first and then the distal. Then the minus 33 is always going to be above on supply and or below on demand. Now, this also allows you to put in targets. So if you want a one-to-one, this would be 233%. You could make this, for example, bright blue, then a 366 would be a 1-to-2, a 499 would be a 1-to-3, and a 500 and 600, 623 is going to be a 1-to-4. So I'm moving in 133% steps, starting from 100, because our zone is 100 to minus 33. So it's 133 percentage points wide. To add a 1-to-1, I need to add 133, the width of the zone, to my entry point, which is 1, which is always your proximal first. So I add 133 to 100 for 233 for 1-to-1. I add another 133 for 1-to-2. I add another 133 for 1-to-3, and I add another 133 for 1-to-4, and so on and so forth. If you want to check what a 1-to-10, for example, is, you would say 10 times 133 is 1,330 plus 100, because we add at the 100, we start at the 100 mark. So a 1-to-10 would be 1,430, for example. And now I have a 1-to-10. I have a 1-to-1, a 1-to-2, a 1-to-3, a 1-to-4. So if I want to remove the lines, I just click on it. I remove them by pressing delete. And now how could I check if this is correct? Well, you could do the calculation, entry to stop loss, entry to target, entry to stop loss, entry to target. To make this simple, I could also make this box just that big. Now, new parallel. This should now just be exactly the same size. Yes, it is, right? 1-to-1, same box size, new parallel, 1-to-2, new parallel, 1-to-3, new parallel, 1 to 4. If I add 6 more, then it'll be a 1 to 10. Okay, so 1 to 1, risk to reward, 1 to 4, risk to reward, and I could maybe even, what happens if I'm going to say show value? Yeah, on show value, now you see with the 1 to 1, and you can take a screenshot of that. 1 to 2, risk to reward. 1 to 3, risk to reward. And 1 to 10, risk to reward. So take a screenshot of this, or take a screenshot of this, set as default or don't set as default. If you set this as default, what's going to happen is that every time you draw something, it will come up, right? So press on it again, untick all of those, set as default. Okay. Now, if you draw it again, it will not come with those lines, but as you double click on it, you will have those pre-set numbers there, and you can just select them to be on whenever you want them to be on, right? And you could say, well, on this one, I only want to look at a 1 to 3 and a stop loss, and then you only get the ones that you want to look at. Now I'm going to do something that you never want to do. I'm going to go to remove drawing objects. I'm going to select all, and I'm going to press OK. Now everything is deleted for all of the drawings, for all of the windows, for all of the symbols I may have done. Okay, so you never want to do that. How you'd want to delete your drawing symbols is you want to click on them individually, press delete to remove them. Okay, because otherwise there's no way of getting this back. There's no Control Z. Okay, there's no go back, take me back one step. That's the one thing with TradeStation that I dislike about it, is there's no Control Z button. Right? If you did a mistake with a drawing, if you removed a chart, oops, it's gone. There's no Control Z. I cannot go back. Now, I either load in the old chart that I've done, or I have to fix it manually in redoing all the work. And that's why I also said, never tick this box. Always remind TradeStation that this is really what you want to do. And if in doubt, press cancel. Or if in doubt, press the X right there. Lastly, there may also be vertical lines. On the vertical lines, you could show, double click on it. You could show the date and the time to see, hey, what date was that? If that was interesting to you, maybe interesting as you look at seasonality eventually, but for now, it's rarely something that you will need. So now you know how to draw supply and demand, you know how to create shortcuts, right mouse click, settings, hotkeys, and you can create a shortcut for almost anything what you want to do, right? Most of your shortcuts will be under drawing. Assign the shortcut, close, and then use the shortcuts. Control F for Fibonacci, Control T for trend line, Control B for box, Control up Control down, Control W for text or drawing, Control H for horizontal, Control V for vertical, Control E for eclipse, Control S for snapping is on, Control S for snapping is off. Let's just see if I forgot something here. Wonderful. It's all done. So at this stage, you can start drawing, practicing. When you close something down, always make sure to save your workspace. Save, you don't have to save it as because you already did it. If you, for example, want to say, this is a new one, you want to save it as, you go to save as, or you go save all workspaces. And this way you can easily now create your own workspaces, and you can see all the products that I have here that I'm going to look at in my trading sessions that you definitely want to have. You're going to have everything the same as me. The only thing that you will not see is the indicators. Again, don't worry about the indicators. Start with the basics first. Learn how to drive. And only once you learn how to drive, then you can start thinking about also analyzing the indicators, because you need to learn how to apply them. Just you having them doesn't give you any edge. You don't just have to have, you don't just want them, you also want to know how to analyze them. And for the beginning anyways, you rely on our analysis. So you have access to the indicators by watching our live trading sessions and seeing us, how we apply them. Crude oil with the true seasonality, we would say true seasonality is now up. We want to buy crude oil, and so we did. And so you can take the same signals by accessing and seeing what we and how we analyze these indicators on. However, you will not have ownership. If you want ownership as you become more advanced, no problem. You can contact me, we can talk about it, you can subscribe. But that only comes with you scaling up your business, you giving yourself a salary rise, you making money with trading already, and then you can invest in your business by subscribing to ownership of the indicators and trading software. That's all from my side. For the beginners tutorial, there may be a more advanced tutorial for especially the indicators. Until then, happy learning, happy and safe trading. Thanks for watching, and ciao.